I'm not recording a second time. You're recording a second time. No, wait. You're not recording a second time. I'm recording a second time. That doesn't make sense at all. Because the first recording sucked. Hi, how's it going? I'm Jank Mechanologist, and I'm here to talk about my Dash Database Commoner deck. And yeah, I am actually recording it a second time because the first time didn't go so well, and honestly, it put me to sleep. So Dash Database is a Mechanologist young hero technically because while there is an adult Dash IO, different name, different hero. I can't focus, so don't worry about that. Dash Database has the special ability of you may look at the top card of your deck at any time. Now, this isn't really any time specifically, as there's specific rules, as in, if you do a double boost, you can't look at the top card of your deck while doing your second boost and decide not to do your second boost. It has to be at once. Besides that, pretty much any time in a normal game, you're free to look at the top card of your deck, and that's a pretty powerful ability. Her second ability is, once per turn, you may play a Mechanologist item that costs boost 1 or less from the top of your deck. It costs an extra 1 to play, and it's played at an instant. This is a really powerful ability if you can do it right. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do you get an item on top of your deck? Well, one of two ways. Either you, one, play cards that put cards on top of your deck, Memorial Ground, Cadaverous Contraband, etc. In Commoner, there's not too many options. Or you play enough items that you have items on top of your deck. 4 intellect, 18 health. And even though she has less starting health than most heroes, it doesn't actually hurt her that much. And let me just say, if I haven't said it yet, she is a really fun hero to play in Commoner. Depending on your matchups, of course. But in my games, it was a 4-man armory, 3 games, Ira, KO, and Icelander. Each game was down to the wire. I still went 1 and 2, but it's more my fault than Dash's fault, and my deck building skills. So let's move on to our weapon of choice, the Symbiosis Shot, a dash specialization, so only dash, or dash could use this item, or I'm pulling a blank for some reason. Shapeshifter. Shiana can use it, but she wouldn't be able to use its ability. The Symbiosis Shot gets a Steam counter on it whenever you play a Mechanologist item. Not a Mechanologist item with Crank, but a Mechanologist item in general. But you can only have 6. And then as an action, remove a Steam counter, attack. Not once per turn. So as long as you have action points, you can pew away all you want. Essentially, this puts the pistol strategy all into one weapon. You just have to give it go again somehow. For our main board, we're not too focused on our arcane damage. This is Commoner, so you don't see too much arcane play besides Icelander. Kano has some work to do in Commoner, I think. I could be wrong, though. We are running the Achilles Accelerator, the best Mechanologist boots in the game so far. While it doesn't block, as an instant, you can destroy it to gain an action point, but only do that if you boosted. And, well, you're a Mechanologist, you're going to boost. We're going to run 2 pieces of Ironhide Gauntlet, and Ironhide Helm. Each one, you can pay 1 resource to give it +2 defense, and then it breaks when the combat chain closes. Not bad to pay 2 resources for 4 block, especially if you're going to be using Dash's ability to play items from top of your deck. You're going to have leftover resources, throw a block in there. And then we're also going to be running Vest of the First Fist. There's probably a better choice for a chest piece, but I think this one works really good. As long as you damage your opponent, you can destroy this and gain 2 resources. You can use those 2 resources to then activate Dash's ability, play another attack, play an item from hand, or anything else. Moving on to our main board deck right here, we're going to start with the items. Because we're playing Dash Database, we want items. And between you and me, I think I put too many items in this deck. and I have been working on a version 2, which for some reason doesn't have less items. So first off, since it's on top of the deck already, Optical Monocle, not really a key card of the deck, but I run it because it's a blue, and it also allows you to sift through your deck to find what you want on top. Enters with 5 steam counters. As an action, you can remove a steam counter to opt 1. Pretty simple. You can play instant speed with Dash's ability, and you can sort through your deck to make her ability better. And it gives you a steam counter on Symbiosis Shot, so really good. We are running 4 copies of Boom Grenade, 2 red, 2 yellows. Boom Grenades are crank items that, when you damage your opponent, they are destroyed and deal extra damage. The reds do 4 damage, the yellows do 3 damage. They stick around about 1 turn, maybe 2 if you dash it in with your instant ability. And they're a good way to force your opponent to block. Or, if you want to be sneaky, you can throw this in as an attack reaction and then hope they don't have defense reactions. Unlucky for me, my opponents always had defense reactions, so I never got the Boom Grenade strategy to explode. Moving on to our next item, a really important card to this deck because you have less health than everyone else, you need to block it. Mini Force Field. Now, at first it may not seem like the best ward item, but the fact that you could bring this in at instant speed and have an instant ward 4 is really good, especially in the Icelander matchup or any matchup where you can't block enough. This really comes in handy, and it saved me so many times. If you don't know, Mini Force Field enters with 4 steam counters on it. It has Crank. At the start of your turn, like most Crank items, it loses a steam counter. Ward X, where X is the number of steam counters. So the more steam counters, the better. This next item I cut in version 2, but we'll go over it anyways. Hadron Collider, which is a Crank item. It comes in with 4 steam counters, and when you boost, destroy it and give that boost attack plus X, where X is the number of steam counters removed from Hadron Collider. As Dash database, you could make use of all 4 steam counters. You could also just play it to play an item, crank it, and have a plus 3. I ended up replacing this with a Mechanologist boost card instead. Well, buff card. The Locked and Loaded, because really most of the time this was a plus 3. It doesn't block as an item, so that was replaced. You can run it if you want. It's not a bad item. It's just kind of jank. Jank Mechanologist. We're going to run 3 copies of Backup Protocol, 2 red and 1 blue. These are amazing cards to run. 0 cost items that you can play at instant speed for the cost of 1. Pay 2 resources and get a card of your choice in hand from your graveyard. We run 1 blue because even if you pitch a blue to use it at instant speed to get your blue card from graveyard, you're essentially giving yourself 4 resources, which is not bad at all. It also just gives you a blue card in hand, but we only need 1. Backup Protocol Reds will save you. You could have 1 card in hand, maybe a blue card in hand, and this on the field. Pitch into this. Now suddenly you have a threat coming to your opponent. This next one got cut, but I'm going to explain why I ran it and why I still think it's a fun idea, even though it's kind of jank. Megahertz Script, I ran 2 of them. Crank item, it gives all your Mechanologist attacks go again. Well, attack action cards go again. And the reason why I ran this is not because go wide good. It is. But I ran it because of a little trick you can do with Dash's ability. If this is on top of your deck, and you throw, let's say you throw a payload at your opponent, or a throttle at your opponent, but you don't boost, they might underblock or not block at all because, hey, they'll take damage to keep cards in hand. That is when you attack react by activating Dash's ability and play Megahertz Script from top of your deck. You get a steam counter on Symbiosis Shot, and this attack that your opponent thought was only a one-turn attack suddenly turns into a long chain of attacks. But it's a janky idea, and while it's fun, and I might do it again, I've cut it on the future because most of the time, this was not where I needed it to be. It was in my hand, it was next card down, or just in the way, and it's not consistent. Fun idea, but not consistent. Moving on to our attack actions, we've already seen one of them. We are running 2 copies of 0 to 60 blue and 2 copies of 0 to 60 red. 0 to 60 is a good card. It's a 0 for 4 at red, only a 0 for 2 at blue. But because it's 0 cost, it's a great way to attack if you have only 1 card in hand, maybe 1 card in arsenal. Launch it, boost it if you want to give it go again. It has a breakpoint. The blues don't make a breakpoint, but they're blue, and you need blues. Blue block 3. Moving on, we have 2 copies of Throttle Blue in the main board. It's a blue block 3, and it has a breakpoint of 4. It does cost 2 to play it, but because it has a breakpoint, that's enough for it to stay in the deck. We want breakpoints. We want to try and get over our opponent's defenses, and towards the end of the game, having a 4 attack, even if it costs 2, good to have. We're also going to run 1 copy of Scrap Harvester. This is mostly there as a blue block 3, but because you can scrap a card to put a Steam counter on an item you control with Crank, it's really not bad, and it has a breakpoint of 4. It's expensive to play, so you're probably going to mostly use it as a blue block 3. We are running 4 copies of Zipper Hit, 2 Zipper Hit reds, and 2 Zipper Hit yellows. Amazing mechanologist attacks from Arcane Rising, 1 for 5 and 1 for 4, boost, no special effects, hurt your opponent, especially if you can add Hydron Collider on top of that. 2 copies of Dumpster Dive, just a boost 1 for 4. It does get +1 if you banish an item while boosting, so that's something to think about because as Dash Database, you have the choice of either boosting that item away or playing it. What you decide to do is up to you in the situation. Most of the time, you're probably not going to have it go for 5, but you could. It's always an option. 1 copy of Outpace. Outpace, boost card, 1 for 4, cannot be defended by equipment. Great way to get past your opponent's defenses when you need to, or force your opponent to get rid of cards from hand, because they can't use their equipment to block. Now in Commoner, there's not too much equipment that can block depending on your matchup. Still, there are some, and maybe you can get past it with this. So 1 copy. I will say in my version 2 deck, I upped it to 2 copies, and we'll get to that later. Fender Bender, a 1 for 4, boost, and gets +X, where X is the number of equipment defending it. Not bad. Commoner again, I don't know how good that ability is, but it's a 1 for 4, so we run it. Drive Through Data, 1 for 4, boost. When it hits, opt 1. Your Dash Database, you want to opt, you want the top card of your deck to be what you want, so good card. Medics, 1 for 4 boost. When this hits, you may put an item with cost 0 or 1 from your hand into the arena. I never pulled off the ability while playing, but I could see a situation where you have an item in hand, maybe your Megahertz script, I don't know, and if this hits, great, that's an item out of your hand and makes things a little easier. Combustible Courier, this got cut in my version 2 deck, but it's still a really good mech card. It's probably my favorite mech attack card. 2 for 4, when it hits, the next attack you boost gets +3. Really good for a boost strategy. It's just that Dash Database, my version of the deck, wasn't too boost heavy. Otherwise, great card. And 4 copies of Payload. Payload red, because even though we're not boost centric, we do still boost. And Payload, when you boost, dominates. Payload blue is mostly there as a blue block 3, but towards endgame, it's a great way to ping that 1 damage in. Pretty good. not as consistent, but still pretty good. Moving on to our sideboard, which is kind of a weird subject in Commoner to have a sideboard. Most people don't take it seriously. I don't really either. Still, we got a sideboard. I wasn't sure what to put, so I put 2 copies of Throttle Red and 2 copies of Big Bertha Red. They're both 6 attacks, so they're poppers if you need them. In version 2 of my deck, I cut Big Bertha out because I don't know how many illusionists you see in Commoner. Besides that, that's all they are. 6 attack poppers. 2 copies of Oasis Respite, you decide. Good card. It's a generic though, so be careful when doing it. Luckily, as Dash Database, you can always see the top card of your deck, so it's not as bad, though it can still hinder you if you want to boost a turn, and that Oasis Respite is just staring at you in the face being like, don't you do it, don't you boost, don't you boost. Luckily, you have Achilles Accelerator, so it's not too bad, and I did actually use that in my game against Iyslander, where I boosted despite having Oasis Respite on top, because it would activate Achilles Accelerator and give me go again if they decided not to block for whatever reason. And 1 Null Rune Gloves. Why? Arcane damage. So Achilles Accelerator already gives us Arcane Barrier 1. Arcane Barrier 2 is better. However, in version 3, I do have another piece of Null Rune for Arcane Barrier 3, and that's just because of how annoying Icelander's wand is. The moon... Oh, I forgot what it's called. The staff that she uses from Uprising that attacks for 3 on your turn. It turns out that pinging damage of 1 extra arcane is really annoying, especially when she can hit you for 1 with her staff and destroy your ward. So that's my version 1 of the deck. It played pretty good. All of my games went down to the wire. Yeah, I lost 2 of them and 1-1, the game against Iyslander. But still, it was a fun deck. So, what changes did I make in version 2? Well, we have to go to the computer to look at that. Snap! Is this thing on? Hey, it's working. Alright, so welcome to... Wait, wrong deck. Commoner Item Explosion version 2. There we go. So, I called it Commoner Item Explosion. There's no explosions in this deck besides Boom Grenade. Since all the explosion cards, Tick-Tock Boom, Tick-Tock Doomsday Clock, is Majestic. I can't play it. So, for the changes we made to this deck, we took out Hydron Collider and replaced it with Locked and Loaded. It only gives you +3, but it's an action I can play instead of relying on Hydron Collider to be played, and it's free. We added 1 more copy of Outpace because it's a 1-for-4 boost. We also replaced Megahertz Script with Autosave Script, and the reason for that is because you can still deck out on this deck. It's a Mechanologist deck. Decking out is a high possibility. Autosave Script might save that. It might be a card I cut in the future, but for this version, we're going to stick with that. 1 more copy of Scrap Harvester just to add an extra blue to the deck. That's another problem I ran into. As you can see, this is a very red-heavy deck at 24 reds currently. It was more in version 1, so I really need the resources, especially if you're going to activate Dash Database's ability. And for the sideboard, we removed Big Bertha, added Null Rune Hood, and since I had 1 more card to add, I added the Movable. And the reason for that was my match against KO. KO is annoying in Commoner. If you're lucky, he won't hurt you at all. I wasn't as lucky. I had to block so many 14 attack, 16 attack actions because of buff. Oh, I rolled a 5. You know what that means? It's gonna hurt. So many turns I had to block my whole hand. So, Unmovable's there, just for the big matchups. So if you're up against Rhinar, Bravo, KO, anyone that hits really big, Unmovable, it's there for you. And that's it. That's version 2 of the deck. Really not much different besides that. All the other equipment is the same, main board equipment's the same, and I look forward to trying this deck next time I get a chance to play Commoner. We'll see though. Commoner is not the most popular format in my area, but who knows? Maybe I'll get to play it again. Let's return to here. Haha! So yeah, that's my Commoner deck. It went 1 and 2, but it was fun to play. And there's my little promo card. You can't play because it's a rare. Oh, and by the way, dash sleeves. So, hopefully version 2 sounds better. Of my recording, that is. I've been the Jank Mechanologist. That's been my janky Commoner deck. I'm gonna go work on something else. Did your outro backwards. It's have a good night, week, evening, etc. Now, I'm gonna go work on something else.